meeting today, and one of the things that I'd like to share with you is new Chancellor has committed to visiting every campus 3 times each semester. I think you're going
This year.
This year. Next year it's going to be 4 times each semester. But actually, I think Chancellor Malloy will exceed that. I believe this is your 3rd visit already, and you have at least 1 additional in the
I think that's right. We have one scheduled, and we'll schedule another one.
Right. And so the visit today, the primary purpose is to talk about unified accreditation. And the Chancellor is going to share with you a number of things, but one of the things that I believe helps ensure the success of this endeavor is the guidelines that the Chancellor has chosen to follow as he pursues unified accreditation. And so he has made his presentation. I think we're going to be ready to take some questions. If you have questions, this is your opportunity to ask those and get the answers so that you know how this is going to go forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce our Chancellor, Chancellor Malloy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jim Thalen's birthday, and he's my chief of staff and general counsel to the system, is today. It would be proper for me to tell you how old he is. I'll just say that he's no longer 49. Happy birthday.
And the cupcakes, by the way, are for that, but all.
Everyone's entitled to a cupcake. So it's great to be with everybody. I don't know whether you know everyone's. Why don't I ask the people that are with me just to stand up and introduce themselves so that you know the members of the team that you may have not met previously. Ryan, you want to start?
Hi, Ryan Lowe. I'm the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration for the system. You've heard about me.
Kay Kinzel, Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs.
Hi all, Rosa Rodon, Associate Vice Chancellor for, oh my God, I just lost my title there, for Student Success and Credential Attainment.
And Dan Malloy, I'm the new chancellor. And I was here on July 1st, right? Many of you were not here that day. Doing good things, I hope. And then we were back for the trustees meeting just recently, back today. I think I'm scheduled for November 5th, and I think it's our intention to get here. It's a little out now, right? Get here early December, not to interfere with exams. So, and really that's to introduce myself more fully to the people I'm working with on all of our campuses and to talk about issues that may be of concern. Am I moving one way? Is yours off? I might be too close. Okay, it's off. To talk about issues that may be of concern. So let me just talk about a few things and then perhaps get into an issue that might be on some people's mind. We will be starting a new campaign, advertising campaign, multifaceted on behalf of the system to sell our systems as the appropriate choice for Maine high school graduates. In 2016, the percentage of Maine high school graduates, which is declining anyway, that we received in our system was down to 29.4 from a high of about almost 34%. And in a shrinking pool, to have your percentage shrink as well is not a good thing. So we're going to put some money, almost $500,000, in communicating with parents, with students beginning in their sophomore year. We'll spend about $200,000 of that on TV. So I did see an ad for Southern Maine when I turned on the football game. And then last night that we're going to see ads on behalf of the system. And a lot of our long-term message is about the fact that this is great value. And that we're seeing a lot of students who go for a year or two to private universities and then come back to us. But they're coming back to us with far more debt than they reasonably would have expected to have if they remained in our system, came to our system. And we're also will be announcing on Friday that we believe that we will reach a target of about 1,200 students in our system who will have no debt as a result of coming to our university. has to do with their own economic circumstances, but it also has to do with our ability to wrap around that issue and make sure that in our graduating numbers, that 1,200 people from Maine schools will be graduating without debt as a result of the affordability of our program. So you'll see that relatively soon. We are also, as you know, we received an increase in compensation. We need to get that second year funded, and that's something that we'll be working at the legislature, or already am working at the legislature to make sure that they fund our second year of our contract as they funded their second year of other state employees' contracts. And so the community college and ourselves have to make sure that we get those additional dollars in our budget. Interestingly enough, because of a realignment for Fort Kent with respect to its share of the monies that come from the state to the system, if we're successful in getting that number, your life will be a little bit easier, breathe a little easier with respect to the percentage of money that will be coming from that system to you all. And so we're anxious to do that, and also see that other capital projects move forward in a timely fashion. The other thing is that we are, when I started on July 1st, about 2 weeks later, there was my first Board of Trustees meeting. At that time, I was asked and directed, quite frankly, to make a recommendation with respect to whether or not to finally pursue a unified accreditation at the next meeting. That meeting was the one that was held here. By that time, I reached the conclusion that it was in our system's best interest to move forward with unified accreditation. Unified accreditation meaning that instead of each of the 7 universities pursuing separate accreditation, and I'm talking about the primary accreditation, the one that you have to have in the New England system, would be eligible for federal money for scholarships and loans and the like. And there's obviously measures other things, but that's the one we have to have. I did recommend that we pursue that because I actually truly believe that it's in the best interest of our students to do that. I also think it's in the best interest of our universities as wholes to do that, and I also think it's most particularly beneficial to small universities within our 7-university system who are feeling some of the greatest amount of pressure. And the reality is going forward, we should make sure that we have the course offerings that will allow us to attract a higher percentage of the students that I've already referenced. And that means that we're going to have to find ways to work beyond our boundaries, to work with one another across those artificial boundaries that independently accredited universities have established and gone a long way to keep. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have a Fort Kent. In fact, there's a document in front of you, which is the first document. Now, can you hear me? Okay. Which is the first document, which I was actually surprised. You know, unified accreditation used to be called single accreditation. Has been talked about in the system since 1986. It was really what was behind the formation of the system back in 1968. That we would eventually get to something more like one university. But in considering and looking at the history, what I came to the conclusion of is we're scaring a lot of people. What we should tell them is what unified accreditation is and what it is not. And that document in front of you lays out the principles. We're going to have separate universities. We're going to have presidents. In this case, a president provost, Prescott president provost. At larger universities, a president and a separate provost. But they're going to work separate football, athletic programs, an investment program for all of our universities and infrastructure. All of that is there. And it was necessary, I think, to say those things that we could concentrate on why we're doing it and the benefits of going in that direction. So I'll give you an example. At one time, a very large percentage of the students who came to this university took French. And In fact, at all of our universities, people came for the classics. In fact, Ray Rice, president down at Prescott, was a Latin major in college. We don't have the classics anymore. Now, we could have supported the classics department on an interjurisdictional basis. That could have been done, but it didn't get done. And so the answer was to eliminate. What we really need to do is make sure that we're meeting students where they are with the programs that they need and the coursework that they need. And the best way to do that now in this very constrained and difficult financial set of circumstances, which we're still dealing with, the demographics which we'll deal with for the next 20 or 30 or for the rest of the existence of this system, the best way to do that is to increase cross-campus collaboration, to maintain the programs that we need. It also meets students where they are. Students are coming to college now wanting to have more than just a major experience. It's not, it's necessary for somebody who wants to go in business, doesn't want to be an accountant, but wants to go into business to understand accounting. I'll use Prescott again. They did away with their accounting offerings years ago, and therefore didn't have anyone to teach accounting on the campus. But if you're going to go into business for yourself, couldn't an accounting course or two be the right thing to have available to you? And you could all now think of examples. It's interesting, students who are coming want to know more about cybersecurity. They may not be intending to be in the cybersecurity field as a major or to graduate with that degree, but just for personal reasons and protection, they want to know more about those fields. Education evolves, and we have to meet the people that we're going to educate where they are on campuses and what they want. And what they want sometimes is measured by what's offered elsewhere. We need to turn on the dime a lot quicker, like some of our competition has done. For instance, just a few years ago, Custom was getting about 150 students from the main graduating high school class. Right now it's 500. Remember what I told you about the percentage that we get? 29.4 as of September, as of the fall of 16. People are literally eating our lunch because we haven't been able to do some of the things that unified accreditation would allow us to do. Not just save departments or offerings, but expand offerings very substantially on a multi-campus basis. And that's what is really behind the steps that we're taking to move forward. Now, what did the board tell me at the meeting in this room? They said, present us a plan on how, or a framework, on how we would pursue this going forward, and do that by November. We're drafting that. We're doing the research. We're talking to NECI, which is our accrediting agency, to understand the requirements. We're getting people who have done similar things around the nation and getting their advice. I will present that plan in November. And I anticipate that the board will act either a go or no go in January scheduled meeting or February special call meeting, and that we would then be in a position to notify NECI of our intention and hopefully receive permission to proceed on that by July 1st. The significance of that is that's really the start date for all of the things that we're going to have to do. And all those things are going to involve representatives at every single campus working on that subject matter to make sure that we're meeting those standards, that we can prove that we have the programs or are strengthening programs that are weaker, and that's addressed in our plan. And I envision that that's probably a 2-year process before everything is done. What does that mean to current accreditation? I think current accreditations will remain in place until such time as there is a system-wide recognition. It also means that all the other accreditations, other than the NECI accreditation, will remain in place. So that if there's a special program that's offered at this university that requires accreditation by some other agency, those will still be pursued on a local basis or campus-to-campus basis, or in the case of a different department configuration by that department. But actually our primary would be to the system, and all of our universities would be covered under that. Meaning, in the long run, life would be a lot easier because there'll be people pursuing it on a system-wide basis as opposed to individual campus basis. So I think that's by way of background. Have I covered most of the things that we needed to cover? So I'm happy to have a conversation with you about that or anything else that you want to talk about on your campus. Yes?
So the prospect of students taking classes at other universities in the system is something I definitely advise myself. I'm Peter, I'm a biology professor, I've been here for 6 years. And I just am curious if there's like substantial evidence that the incentive for students in place A to take a class at any of the other places is actually happening, because my experience with the students is totally anecdotal, but they're kind of resistant. Like, I came to school here. And I think it's a great initiative, what you're trying to do. And like the main geospatial initiative is an example of that, where we're trying to make classes the same, and then we have differentiation. So I guess my question is, like, do we have good data to support that students will actually take classes at other campuses?
Sure, we do, and that those numbers will increase as styles and methodologies of teaching change. The reality is, when I graduated from college a long, long time ago, the only thing that we had to do with the distance was to paint, and that was on, public television. There was a guy with frizzy hair, and that's how you learn this. And now we're living in a world where universities, including our competition, are teaching in other modalities. That's a reality, and if we're going to compete, I mean, if I had $1 for every time I've heard an ad for Arizona State in Maine, our backyard, I could buy a good percentage of you a pretty good dinner, right? So I think as we prepare for future, the answer is yes. We have, and I'll give you the known examples. We have students who are not graduating in some of our universities in a timely fashion because the course was offered first semester, not second semester. But that course is being offered someplace else, either in a classroom or online, or other distant learning modalities, and they could have taken that course if we didn't make it so difficult to do that. We actually treat students coming from community colleges better than we treat students who are transferring from a university within our own system. Now wrap your head around that. That's what we do. We have an in-place acceptance of almost all the courses taken in community college, but we don't have that here. And it is a competitive disadvantage. If you go to Arizona State, you know that wherever you take your course, you know your credits are good at Arizona State. University of Southern Maine. When this place was founded, and when you had more students, Southern Maine didn't exist. Southern Maine is one of our chief competitors now. Southern New Hampshire, I said Maine. Southern New Hampshire is what I meant. I apologize. Southern Maine wants to change its name. They want to join our team. So I think part of this is just recognizing that we're in a more competitive world. And we have to be, the idea that we would deny somebody a timely graduation because we don't have the course on our campus, knowing that it's available someplace else, makes no sense. I would argue. And there are examples of that having happened here. Other things? Yes?
Looking at the hearing about accreditation and implement guiding principles, I think it makes good sense. What would the argument be for unified accreditation? What are the disadvantages?
I've thought long and hard about that. I don't think there aren't any honest disadvantages, but that doesn't stop people from, we're going to lose control. I mean, everybody says they want change, but then you show them what change looks like, and then they get very nervous, because what does it mean to them personally? I also think that, Some of our universities think of themselves differently than other of our universities. Some of our universities feel the competition to a greater extent than other universities within the system and say, well, why should I do that to make somebody else's life easier? I think we can answer that question when we all decide we're going to concentrate on the student. Right? And why would we not want to expose all of our students to the very best possibilities of the entire system, regardless of where they are? But I think it's about control. It's about fear. That's why I said I'd be at every campus 3 times, and if you'll have me to your Senate, or you'll have me to your Assembly, or however, I'll be back. I think that's what we're trying to do, is to answer those questions. Why we started with the principles is to say what it is and what it is not. And it is not, in essence, making an amalgamation of where every place has to change its name and be something other than it currently is, or can't stay in the leagues that they're in, or have the individual accreditations that they have for the programs that they're in. And I just felt that if we were going to have this honest conversation, it had to start somewhere, and that's where it needed to start. And so I'm intending to answer any question. But honestly, I didn't come to this job with a mission. This has been talked about within the system. I got hired in some senses, perhaps, to help make the final decision whether we're going to go forward. But this is not something that I'm exporting. We've been talking about it in the state since 1968 in some form or another. And actually, the Board of Trustees in 1986 voted to pursue unified accreditation at the appropriate time. And that's true. And by the way, I'm very committed to transparency. So every document on unified accreditation over the last 5 years is at a website that you can visit and read every single one of them. And as more communications take place between ourselves and NETCHI, they'll be on that site. I'm even going so far as to say that any message that I send to the trustees, and I send them a message every Sunday, will be made available to the entire community, students, teachers, and faculty 4 weeks later. So we're committed to transparency.
Do you envision a unified accreditation evolving into something where there would be more standardization across all campuses in terms of payment promotion criteria, committee structure, curriculum?
Well, you know, I think, I started with an example of classics, which is disappear, right? But we could have supported that program. On the other hand, we're going to have individual programs at universities, largely based on in some senses, on what the primary mission is of that existing university. So I think what it evolves to is I think going to be up to the faculty. And I don't think we can impose that. There was a great example of the GIS folks who got tired of getting tied up in the bureaucracy and just kind of went off to the side and worked it all out themselves. But that's one example. You know, we have lots of other programs where that's not taking place. So hopefully it'll make it easier to do that if folks want to do that. And my prediction is that people will want to do that more in the future. Just as my prediction is more people are going to be getting their education using different modalities than they currently do. You don't have to be I'm not a rocket scientist. Yes?
So I'm Neil Thompson. I represent the campus to the NGI out here. And some observations about my students who take advantage of the courses available online. The GIS certificate of mine requires several advanced computing courses that we cannot offer here because we have 1 or 2 students per year who are invested in them. So it's been tremendously useful to them to be able to take those courses. I think they're about 70% as good as a regular in-person class. I think they're neck and neck with a one-off directed study. And I do think it takes a particular kind of student to take full advantage of that kind of course. The advanced computing courses that have prerequisites that are on campus that I have taught them, that's where I see success. In lower level courses where they're just that for what you will, but there's elements of a successful model.
Can I just share something with you? And thank you for sharing that. You know, one of the things I've said in the past in another state, in another position I was in, was I wondered out loud whether students should not be required to take some number of online courses as a matter of preparation for graduation. People look at me like you must be crazy. But think about this. That the vast majority of our students in our system will never take another course after they graduate at a university. And all their learning for the rest of their lives is going to be on a computer. One of the things we have an obligation to do is prepare people for the learning. You know, we talk about our mission of admitting, retaining, and graduating lifelong learners. One of the things that we should be busy at work at is preparing people for lifelong learning and the modalities that they're going to operate in. If you're a real estate agent, most of the courses you're going to take to maintain your license for the rest of the time that you're a real estate agent are going to be online. If you're an accountant, most of the courses that you're going to take for the rest of your lifetime as an accountant to keep your certification is going to be online. If you're a lawyer, I happen to be one, the courses you're going to take to maintain your license are going to be online. So in some senses, what I would say to you is, we need to perfect that. Now, having said that, I don't think there's anything more valuable than an in-classroom, you know, a large number of courses taken in classroom where you're interfacing with the individual and getting a nuance that you might not otherwise pick up in different modalities. But the reality is, people are going to learn the rest of their lives online. Think about it. Just saying.
Follow up on that, would you envision shared graduate programs, for example, in some of the discussions we've had, to allow individuals and communities to pursue graduate courses online?
I think that we're going to, well, one of the things that we've done is, we're going to bring a doctorate in physical therapy to our system. And why are we going to do that? Because that's the degree that you need to have, and is largely being required by the industry to practice physical therapy. And yet we don't have that program in our system. And what we're saying about that is we need to work on a cross-campus basis to bring that to more than one place. It's not going to meet the needs even of our state with a big geography but small population if we don't do it on a multi-campus basis. So I think that there are real possibilities to do that on an ongoing basis. And I would say to you that we probably could not build a sufficient number of individual standalone programs in physical therapy without doing something like that. So I think it will very much depend on how things evolve over time and within systems like ours. I can predict, but I can't guarantee. But the reality is things are changing, and everybody knows it's changing. You know? But we need to manage that change, and we need to have ways to make sure that the beneficiary are students, and that we don't disrupt the model that we all so firmly believe in. You know? I don't believe that. I mean, I know people who will get their here. Listen. Western Governors University graduates more people than we graduate in the entirety of our system, and all of the programs are online. And then if you're taking nursing, obviously you have to have a clinical portion of that, right? So things are happening elsewhere that we need to be responsive to. Having said that, I believe in classroom learning. So it's not like I'm saying that in any way do I predict that the University of Maine is going to be run by a computer someday, and no one's ever going to talk to a president or a provost or a professor. In fact, I think one of the great strengths of our program, and one of the great strengths of this place, I had a young man sitting at that seat, or maybe it was yours, I forget now, yesterday, telling me a story about how he would not have been successful if he hadn't come to a small university. That if he had stayed in Florida where his family was from, and he'd gone to one of the big universities with 40, 50, we had to have a university with 100,000 people down there. If he'd gone to one of those places, he never would have made it. I believe we have to offer people many choices, and this is a great choice for them. Oh, did it die again? Okay. Other questions? Yes?
So, my name's Kirsten, I'm not a doctor, I teach biology and genetics and chemistry. At some campuses where I have worked before, instead of providing online courses, where one teacher sets up from the beginning of his class with an online and all the information is transmitted electronically, there have been the option for students to teleconference into courses. So in their room or in another campus or satellite place, they are able to sit in the classroom with other students and have a bit of ask and response. Do you anticipate that that might be something that would be a part of this unified accreditation? So you would still encourage that online learning, but also have this opportunity for courses now?
Well, what I would honestly say is that is not dependent on unified accreditation. It may be made easier on a cross-jurisdictional basis, but it's not dependent on it. And the reason I can say that is we already have it in places. We're building those classrooms slowly but surely to allow for that interaction. The University of Maine Augusta celebrated this year 30 years of offering. In those cases, it was a TV kind of broadcast to their centers. But for a state that's had offerings for 30 years, we're not where most of our competitor organizations are. So we can do that. What we're also seeing in our MBA program, for instance, which is now largely based down in the Portland area, is professors at University of Maine participating in the MBA program, although they're part of the undergraduate degree program, and they're teaching one class at the University of Maine, and then the next class will be taught down, go back and forth. And so I think you're going to see those modalities. You're going to see courses offered where people get together at the outset of the course for a week intensive program, and then they do their distance learning other ways, or in other modalities, I guess is the right terminology to use. Part of the problem, I will readily admit from my examination of the system, is that we have not invested sufficiently to allow those kinds of things to take place at the level that they're taking place amongst our competitors. So I got a lot of issues to manage. This is the one that we have to make a decision on between now and the spring, but there are a lot of things that I'm charged with trying to get done. But we do some of that. Anybody else? No?
I have another question.
Sure. All right.
I'm just curious about unified accreditation. Like, how do you envision the pooling of resources or restructuring of different types of financial responsibilities? I know you mentioned each campus, individual will control their finances, but
And admissions.
yes,
And governance.
But for example, something I hear sometimes is financial aid across the campuses is illegal. Is that something that would be like a pooled resource together where it would be equally distributed across the campuses, or is that something else entirely?
Well, there are differences that exist because of how money was given to support programs at different campuses. For instance, there are scholarships that exist on this campus, I would imagine, I haven't had this discussion, because someone in the community funded a scholarship. So I don't think we're not, first of all, those are gifts, they were given with specific direction, and so the answer, are we going to amalgamate those? The answer is no. Anything we do on the federal side will comply with federal law, but I think we're talking about, although a lot of our information on admissions, for instance, goes into a common system, the admissions operation remain the operations of the campuses, and I don't think we're looking at seeing that change. You're asked specifically on the scholarship or financial aid side. I'm not sure I'm expert enough to go deeper in answering that question, but by the next time I see you, I will. Okay. But there are clearly differences that are are donor intended. So those, obviously, those commitments, whether they're legally binding or not, will continue to be met. And then there are scholarships in different programs and that sort of thing. And so you do end up with that differentiation. The federal programs will be equally applied. And then I'll try to dig deeper on how that might otherwise work. And a lot of it, quite frankly, and this is, back to one of the opening questions, a lot of this is to be worked out by faculty and committees, and this is a big effort where staff, faculty, and some number of students are going to have to be involved on a multi-year basis to get us to that point. And it will be largely driven by those findings and those discussions. It'll be a lot of work, but then we'll change the cycle and work very substantially after that. And I suspect in the long run will cost less money than maintaining 7 different accreditations on a 10-year cycle with a 5-year visit. Having said that, we're not doing it to save that money. We're doing it to make the experience of our students better, and quite frankly, to make sure that we remain in operation at all of our sites. That's my goal. Yes?
So I'm Nadeau, chemistry professor up here. My question for you is there any interest in building a uniform course catalog across campuses? Because as many of us know who advise students right now, every campus does it a little bit differently, which actually makes it more challenging for students to find courses that they might take on a different campus.
Again, I think a unified accreditation would make that easier, but it doesn't dictate it. I think it currently is not possible, really. There are some number of cross-listed courses, but very limited. In fact, they're so limited because our accrediting agency requires a very different process to approve that cross-listing. If they were happy with the governance structure of those offerings, being able to help hold someone responsible for that cross-listing and the offering of those courses, and under unified accreditation, that would be the unified accredited entity, then that becomes a possibility, a very real possibility, as opposed to what is a very limited number of cross-listed courses that literally have to be approved, that governance structure, individually by NETU, which is a great impediment. It also means that if anybody doesn't want that to happen, they can basically call the question and it doesn't happen. Does everyone understand what I'm saying on that? Yes, back to you.
So, like Neil, I also help with the Maine Geospatial Institute, and one of the things we encountered when trying to move things forward is 7 campuses trying to approve 7 different courses and streamlining that. If we replicate MGI, which is great, it works. Like I said, one of my students took a class, GIS2, just like in the case study or case that you described, where the course isn't offered frequently enough here. They took it online, graduated on time, great, success story. Just exactly like you said. So I guess from the point of view of faculty and governance, there isn't like a clear path where we could streamline that, but that would really help make the sharing of courses happen quicker, because everyone says, okay, we agree that this is the syllabus, this is what is actually going to be covered to whatever specificity everyone at all the campuses that are participating in a given new shared program or whatever would agree to. So I guess from my perspective, what can you do to help that happen quicker? Because operationally, that's a roadblock.
And I'm going to repeat some of the same things I said earlier. The GI, you guys have done it, right? But you are really the only sign of that in the entire system, where it was self-started, driven, and basically everyone said, you guys know a lot more about this than we do. We'll get out of the way and let you do what you needed to do, and you did it. That hasn't been possible in most other areas. And if you're asking, would that be easier to do under a unified accreditation? Yes, it would be easier to do. But faculty is still going to have to come to the table and do that work, because there still will be 7 different groups of faculty, or not in every subject matter, maybe 5 or 4 or 3 to do those things. but there'll be a clear path to being able to do those things. So I don't have all the answers, but it would not dictate that happens, but it would make it possible for that to happen. And quite frankly, I'll go one step further. I think it's easier to do, then more of it will be done. I mean, I think that's a calculation that can reasonably be assumed, which apparently people in chemistry would like to say. But not, maybe not universally, and therefore it doesn't get done.
Well, I think it's because it's largely driven by people getting along. Like the people in MGI, we all get along. People don't, there's no like, I mean, there's cordial disagreements, but people in general get along. So where else in the humane system is there a bunch of people who get along enough to do that? That would be my suggestion. I mean, there are others, I'm serious. It's kind of like we're people first and then, you know.
But let me just push back.
Yeah.
So if everybody did it,
Right,
it would be the equivalent of unified accreditation.
right.
Right. But everybody hasn't done it and is not willing to do it because, you know, we live in a world where everybody has to agree on everything. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm pushing you a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
because
I agree with that.
I looked into how you got it done,
Yeah.
and a lot of it was jawboning and a process. Now take that amongst 6,000 people, as opposed, how many folks were involved in the process?
I don't know, they're 10 to 15. I mean, largely it was driven by Torah, though. I think finding another Torah for all these different programs, yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Just to let you know, Tora Johnson, who is your equivalent at the Machias campus, is going to be invited to give a brief presentation as part of the academic affairs update at the November board meeting, and we'll cover some of this. And yes, hats off to your group for having done that, but there are other many pockets of faculty who see things differently and who do invest in the curriculum, who do want to see their curriculum move forward. What we have to do is collectively build a lot of trust, as you have already done with your group. To the question about the chemistry faculty raised about the unified catalog, the registrars would support that. It'll be a hell of a lot of work, but they would really welcome something like that and make their jobs ultimately much, much easier, advising jobs much, much easier, as you had suggested, and teaching from the same catalog much more rational. So there are things we can do along the way, and MGI we constantly hold up as a good model of that because it has been so successful. We do have to finish that one piece of the approval processes because we actually created a grid of approval processes across all the campuses. I'm not even going to show it to you because it'll hurt your feelings and blow your minds. But there's a lot of effort that we have to put forward, and it's just a matter of collective will. So I'm feeling it in this room.
Anyone else? Shannon, do you have any questions? Sure, back to you.
Sure, and to be clear about MGI, we don't have one syllabus that we're sharing on all GIS. We have classes on GIS, classes. We have common objectives. We have learning objectives that we agreed on as a group. We don't all sit down and make sure our syllabus starts with this paragraph and down, stop without that.
Let me also say to you that NECU has, we've had one thing happen a series of things that have happened in New England, which is really changing the focus of the accrediting agency. And that is that Mount Ida, a small school in Massachusetts, in the middle of the semester announced that it was closing at the end of the semester. And that has had a ripple effect, and it's being applied. It's had a ripple effect in tightening the scrutiny. And that scrutiny with respect to financial liability will be applied equally to state-sponsored programs as well as independently sponsored programs, because you can't have a different standard being applied by that agency. That is having an effect on how smaller universities are being examined. I'm just being honest with you. Big universities can be challenged and smaller universities can be challenged. but smaller universities can buckle under the challenge a lot quicker than bigger universities can. And ultimately, I believe that in the future world to be designed by NECHI, all of our entities would be better off under a single accreditation, quite frankly. So what I would say to you is, I'll be back, you know. Oh, by the way, can I just have this for a minute? If you want to take a survey, you can use this card, or you can load it in otherwise, but you can use this card. And take, I guess, about a 20 question or so survey on that. If you want to think about it, think about it. But we can't say I didn't come and try to answer all the questions. And I would urge, if you haven't read my communication, which was, how many pages was that? Report. Thing. 22. About a 22-page report that we gave to the trustees here, and actually prior to the meeting, but it was discussed in the meeting in this room. But always think, and again, not everyone's had the opportunity to read it. If you read the principles, you understand what our preconditions are. They're very defensive of maintaining individual campuses, presidents, provosts, administration, faculty organizations, individual accreditations, individual sports programs, individual cultural programs, but doing it under a bigger umbrella. Okay? Well, thank you very much. We got lunch out of this? Who am I meeting?
Cupcakes. What the new chancellor is trying to ensure that we don't waste public money.
Okay. All right, are we all going to lunch? Are we doing, or just some people? I don't know how that works. Is it? I will have lunch. All right. Well, I got lunch out of this. I'm seeing some people. I hope I've answered your questions. I will be back again, I promise. And I promised everybody I would do that. But ultimately, the trustees need to make a decision, and we need to adapt to the new environment. Okay? Thanks.